And good evening. I am Bishop J. A. Williams II, and I am excited and delighted to have yet another opportunity to welcome you to the Bishop's Table, where we entertain conversations at the intersection of faith, politics, and culture. As you can see, we are not in studio today. The Our host at Nice Media had some unfortunate travel arrangements, and flights back home were delayed, and so we were unable to be at the studio. However, we're grateful for other methods and other means. And tonight's conversation was, in my estimation, entirely too significant and too important for us to delay. We're going to be talking today about one of the most closely watched primaries, um, non presidential primaries in modern history that took place in our state on this past Tuesday, that saw the Democratic voters vote for Abdul El Sayed to run for the U.S. Senate. And we're going to talk about what that race means, talk about his opponent for the November general election. We're going to talk about some of the other races as well. And there is no one better to talk about these things with me than the ultimate political girl, Miss Thomaesa Bailey. Hey there, Thomaesa. How are you today?
Hey Bishop, how are you? I'm doing good.
I am absolutely wonderful. As I was sharing with you earlier, it's been an extremely hectic day. I'm glad for the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, if for no other reason than I'm glad for the opportunity to be able to sit down for a minute. It's been that kind of day, but certainly we're grateful to the Lord for all that He has done. And one of the things that I've been saying as I get up in years, is that a good phrase, is that it is much better to wear out than to rust out. So I'm grateful for all that we've been doing on today. Listen, you are the ultimate political girl. I think you've already peeped that you're going to be our main political analyst here at the Bishop's Table. I value your insight and your perspective. I value your extensive resume that you have put together in just a relatively few short years. Working at in government, both at the federal, state, and local level, all the way from Georgia to DC, here to here in Detroit, and certainly you are the ultimate political girl, and we're happy to have you here today. Listen, let's just jump right in. We're going to have some fun with this tonight as we kind of break down some of the things that we saw take place in Tuesday's election. And it's Friday. I had the news on earlier today, and CNN, MS Now, Fox, everybody is still talking about Michigan's primary this past Tuesday. What say ye about those things that transpired this week?
I mean, it was exciting. I mean, I call myself the ultimate political girl because I truly love election day. Like that is one of my favorite days of the entire year where we sit down and we see who's next, what is the changing of the guard going to be like, and what is it going to look like, and what are the people going to decide? What is the will of the people, right? This is when we find out what the will of the people actually is. And in Michigan, the people say progressive. That's the way we're
Uh,
going.
Listen, we gonna just jump right in here. You used the phrase, what is the will of the people? What is interesting to me is seeing the commentary from moderate and centrist Democrats who, right up until I went to bed Tuesday night, were saying that there was no way that Michigan was going to entertain uh, so many populist candidates, so many progressive candidates. They argued that point right up until elections were called, and since the elections have been called, um, there seems to be an unwillingness to accept the will of the people. Um, one gentleman was saying that. Uh, Marilyn McMorrow
Mallory
was
McMorrow.
Mallory. I'm sorry, Mallory McMorrow was a spoiler, and because the race was so close, if Mallory had never gotten in the race, um, Haley Stevens would have won. I mean, I've just heard all kinds of things. Um, do you think what we saw Tuesday night does, in fact, represent the will of the people of the state of Michigan?
Yes, yes, I do. I mean, it's the election result, and we have no choice but to honor that. I mean, Mallory McMorrow getting into the race or getting out of the race, or being a spoiler for Haley Stevens, and Abdul Al coming in and playing cleanup. I mean, whatever we try to say, whatever the commentators try to say, I mean, the results are the results. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So I don't know how to combat that. I don't know how to combat the election results. I mean, I understand that Haley Stevens she's been in this position for a long time. She was in the House. People knew her. She was the establishment candidate. She was the candidate with the money behind her. But for some reason, people didn't choose that. For some reason, people went the way of Abdul Al-Sayed. And I don't know, whatever the differences is between those two candidates, I think that people made their choice. So
Yeah.
I would say yes to that.
And it was very close. We
Mhm.
acknowledge it was very close. Abdul got 48.4% of the vote. Haley Stevens came in with 47.5% of the vote. It looks like it's just about 15,000 votes that separated them between them. They got just about 1.5 million votes, and I do want to talk about voter turnout in a minute. Um, and so a lot of people who are moderates who did not see this coming are saying that because the vote was so close, there's still this hesitancy to accept it. But for me, um, what I see is someone who should not uh, have been able to win an election actually pull it off. I mean, Al Sayed even said in many of his campaign stops and some of his advertisements that I know I'm not supposed to be running. After all, my first name is Abdul, and as his opponent in the general election has already let us know, his middle name is Rahman, and so he had that against him. He had, uh, by the end, almost all of the political heavy hitters in the Democratic Party lining up behind Haley Stevens. He was outspent, depending on what day and who you're talking to, somewhere between 10 to 12 to 1. If we take the modest estimates, he was outspent 10 to 1. So for every $100,000 that the Saad campaign spent, the Stevens campaign spent $1 million to combat it. Those are overwhelming odds, and still the people spoke. When I was coming up, I was told that if one candidate had 700,000 votes and the other candidate had 700,001 votes, that the person with that one vote is the winner. And that represents the will of the people. Um, Al Sayed was not the only progressive candidate who beat the odds. Donovan McKinney running against Sri Tanadar for the mighty 13th district, which historically, all of my life, that seat had been held by an African American, the late Honorable Charles C. Diggs and the late John Conyers. Um, and then uh, there was Sri Tanadar, and a lot of us um, uh, couldn't believe that happened. Couldn't believe that he survived his first election cycle. Uh, and he was starting to look as if he would be like so many other politicians who make it to DC, that once they're there, it's almost impossible to get them out. That's what it was looking like. And yet, Donovan McKinney, again, running a grassroots campaign, taking no PAC money, no large corporate money, just funding his campaign with individual donors, knocking door to door and pushing a progressive agenda. He topples Sri Tanadar. Again, it was close, but again, he was outspent not 10 to 1, but he was seriously outspent, I think about 5 to 1. Uh, and again, Sri Tanadar had the backing of the Democratic establishment, the DC Democratic establishment. Uh, there seems to be a very real progressive movement in the Democratic Party in the state of Michigan. Uh, but what does that look like in the general? And I don't have to rush. We got time to talk. But what does that look like in the general? Do you think, um, for example, uh, Wednesday morning, no sooner than the announcement was made that Associated Press had called the the campaign for Al Sayed, um, we began hearing Democratic pundits, not Republicans, fellow Democrats, saying he can't win in the general. Uh, Now, that's interesting because Michigan is known as a purple state. For those who don't keep up with politics, like the political girl, purple state just means that you really can never tell which way Michigan is going to go. Uh, um, Michigan is a divided state. It's a 50-50 state. It's always a toss up, but still people are saying because he's progressive. And I think not just because he's progressive, but because he's Muslim, that there are, that he just can't pull it off. Do you see a path for victory for a candidate like Abdul Rahman El Sayed?
Well, listen, the name conversation is a really funny one, right? Because we had a president named Barack Hussein Obama. Like, it's kind of like, I don't really know how far that goes nowadays. But I will say this: his opponent, Mike Rogers, and President Donald Trump have already trotted out the
Oh,
issues. They've
yes.
already started the Islamophobia. They've already started to talk about him in a negative way. And even with Donovan McKinney, even though he has a clearer path, they've already been talking about, well, these are socialists. This is a socialist agenda. We can't let this pass. I was watching a video where John James was talking about what he planned on doing, and all he talked about was fighting socialism, fighting socialism, fighting socialism. So I think that the other side is really going to hone in on that message of this is America, this is not, communist Russia. They really have a path to kind of putting down candidates because of that, and I feel like that's going to hit Abdul in relation to his religion and to what he looks like and what his policies are, especially when you got not necessarily fully MAGA, but not anti-MAGA either person on the other side. And with Michigan
Mhm.
being a swing state, or a true swing state, having gone red for Donald Trump in 2024, I think that's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. Um, I've always known, obviously, as a black man living in America, I've always felt the weight and the pressure of racism in this country. And certainly with the ascendancy of Donald Trump, his presence on the national scene has created an environment where racism that had been um, undercover is now being unmasked,
Hmm.
and we're seeing um, how much, how little progress has really been made in that area. But I have to admit, I knew that Islamophobia uh, was a real thing, but I have just been taken aback by the boldness of uh, so many individuals to just say um, the most scandalous, disrespectful things, to be blatantly Islamophobic. Um, America is a really divided uh, country right now, and um, the fear mongering that has been so successful, that Donald Trump and MAGA has used um, to make white people feel like uh, everyone else is coming for them, that they have to protect themselves. That's going to be a very real issue uh, in this campaign. Um, uh, White fragility, white fear. Um, it's going to be a tall mountain for El Sayed to overcome, especially when there are so many Democrats who, rather than seeking means to rally around him so that we can defeat a frightening man in Mike Rogers, um, they too are taking pot shots. Interesting to note that as we speak, there is a uh, a family meeting, if you will, of the Michigan Democratic Party. I was invited. I was unable to attend, in part because of this broadcast and some other responsibilities that I have tonight. But it's interesting. They're bringing party leaders together. They're bringing clergy and
This is the
others.
rally at Renaissance High School.
Uh, well, now there's the rally, and then there's also uh, a there's a general election kickoff that started at 5 o'clock. That was to feature a roundtable. Is that the one that you're talking about? It features a roundtable with Pete Buttigieg, Jocelyn Benson, Garland Gilchrist, uh, Eli Savit, and Abdul El Sayed. And part of the reason for this is to bring together factions of the party so that they can actually hear from El Sayed and others as to the direction um, they want to take the party. Can the Democratic Party in Michigan heal and coalesce, coalesce in time to um, mount serious campaigns as we approach the November election, which is only 3 months away.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I watched Abdul's press conference the day after election day, in the election day after morning downtown at the Spirit of Detroit. And
Yes.
it seems as if Curtis Hertel, the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party, feels like there will be a united front, that they are gonna sort of, coalesce around this ticket, and it's all about beating the Republicans now, and that's the goal. We can't help but to have unity in this moment because we know what's at stake, especially with Donald Trump being president 2 more years. We have no choice but to be fighters at this point. I mean, the people have spoken. This is our ticket, and we have to move forward, and we have to move forward in a united way, because if we don't, then what does that say about, what does that say about our numbers? Is that going to, reduce turnout? Like, if we're going to be infighting, that's not going to help anybody. So I think that, from the chair's words, that is the way of the future, and that's what the plan is.
I've heard Curtis Hertel speak in a number of different settings at a number of different times. Um, I was extremely impressed with him on this past Wednesday. He was, as they say, fired up and extremely forceful. I'll tell you somebody else that was extremely impressive to me, and that was Mallory Morrow. Her introduction uh, of El-Sad, and her willingness to stand there with him the first opportunity she got. I think that's the kind of leadership and direction that we need in the state. Listen, I want to talk about turnout, though. Listen, man. Um, if turnout is any indication of interest, if turnout in the primary speaks to what might happen in the general, uh, the Democratic Party, with this progressive push, is looking very strong. For example, in the race for governor, uh, Jocelyn Benson, of course, won the Democratic primary with 1,243,000 votes. Um, Her opponent, Chris Swanson, was Robert Swanson, was far behind her. She swept that race. But the interesting thing is that Jocelyn Benson and Robert Swanson together came up with 1,490,000 votes, almost 1.5 million votes. Jocelyn by herself, almost 1,240,000. That's more votes than all four Republican candidates for governor garnered together. Altogether, all four candidates came up with 929,000 votes. John James, who won, he had 465,000 votes. Now, he won with 50% of the votes cast in the Republican primary, but it was only 465,000 votes, less than 500,000, while Jocelyn Benson had 1,240,000 votes. Now, again, I'm not a political savant like you, but to me, that's indication of a real thrust by Democrats in this state to get involved, especially since we're looking at a primary.
Yeah, I think we're definitely more fired up. I'm gonna say that for sure, because we have something to fight for. Anytime there are people who are united in their fight against one person or one ideology or one thing, we tend to try to come together. So I think Democrats are way more fired up. We have more things to fight for. So I think that's what you're going to see in turnout. We saw that in Georgia as well, in the governor's race. I think the stat was the day after election day that over 1 million more Democrats voted than Republicans voted
Yeah.
down in Georgia. And so I think that Democrats right now are just a little bit more fired up. We have a little bit more to fight against. What I worry about, though, is the strong motivating factor that hate has on people. So
You
though
better
they
talk
did
about it.
so even though they did not come out in the primary, people may find their way to the polls in November because the people on the other side feel like they have something to fight against too, i.e., fighting socialism, i.e., fighting, Abdul Rahman El Sayed. They may feel a little bit more emboldened. They may feel a little bit more like, okay, we need to go and pay attention now because it seems like this movement is making a stand. And we always know whenever there's progress, there's always a backlash, and hate does motivate. So we have to think about that too.
That's such a frightening reality. that we deal with. But the truth of the matter is that the one thing that the sitting president has done masterfully is to use hatred and division as a motivating factor to get his base out to the polls. The numbers it wasn't just there in the governor's race. In the Senate race, we see the same thing. El Sayed and Haley Stevens brought in 1.5 million votes. Mike Rogers, who of course was running unopposed, but he brought in 800,000 votes on the Republican side. And as I look down the numbers, you see those kinds of numbers almost all over the state. So certainly there is energy in the Democratic Party. We certainly have a lot to fight for. I feel that we're literally fighting for this democracy, that we're literally fighting for the future of our nation. And as Black people, people of culture, we're fighting for our survival. The issue is, I believe that we have to keep a unified front from now till November. That we can't uh, allow family squabbles to keep us from defending ourselves against this onslaught of fascism, since they're so willing to throw the socialist and the communist label around, which most of these candidates do not identify as socialists and certainly don't qualify as communists. But we are seeing fascism, textbook fascism, from this Republican regime that is currently um, ensconced in DC. Before we move from this race with El Sayed, uh, we have to deal with the elephant in the room, which is that Haley Stevens did extremely well in African American districts.
Yes.
She carried almost every African American district, to be honest, and that's no matter where that district is in the state. Certainly, um, she carried Detroit, not by the margins that she carried in some of the other areas, but Haley Stevens won the Black vote in some districts by as much as 25, 30% over Abdul El Sayed. What do you think that's about? And do you think that's something that he's going to be able to overcome?
That's a great question. So I watched Steve Kornacki's data
Mhm.
analysis of the Senate race, and it showed how well Haley Stevens did in places like Detroit and black and places where black voters are the majority. And I'll just say, I don't actually know what it is. I think what I would assume or what I think reading the tea leaves is that, a lot of people, a lot of traditional African American voters, typically older voters, they are traditional Democrats. Like they're not trying to hear that other stuff either. Like they are traditional Democrats, and then of course Haley and her team, they made a lot of inroads in Detroit. They know people in Detroit. Detroit is kind of where she's had a lot of events. People know her. She has name ID, and so I think that's kind of what happened. And I think what Steve Kornacki showed was that El Said won in college areas. He won in with the younger people, which makes sense because a lot of these progressives and members of the DSA and all these folks are younger people. These are 18 to 25, and so of course he would win in those areas. So I'm not sure. I think he has a good deal of work to do to kind of win over those traditional Black voters. I think that Black voters will vote Democrat. And I think if he proves himself, if people talk to him about the issues, I think that they'll vote for him. I don't think that they'll vote for Mike Rogers. I think the worst that we can anticipate is people staying home
And yeah,
because they protest him that much. But I don't know that that will happen.
Yeah, and of course, we know that that is something that's been a reality in our communities. If Black people aren't motivated, if they don't feel that they're represented well on the ticket, they will historically stay home. However, I'm hopeful, um, even if El Sayed cannot convince large numbers of the older, more traditional Black Democratic voters. My hope is that, first of all, there's so many other significant and important things up and down that ballot that people will come out anyway. And if they do, they will tend to vote in an election like this. They'll tend to vote straight Democratic because there is no one on the Republican side that would cause any Democrat to want to cross over. Uh, that's
Right.
for that's for sure. Um, uh, so he still has. I think there's still a path, but it's a difficult path. I will say this, um, and then we'll move on for real. I did not. Um, I did not start out uh, as a supporter of Abdul El Sayed. Um, I um, I tend, as a lot of older Democrats do, um, uh, you go with the horse that you've already rode. Um, I changed in this election because I was constantly in rooms with him. I saw him under pressure. I watched all of their debates, and I made note of the stark differences between the direct way that he answers questions. Even if he believes that the answer to the question won't be popular, he still gives direct answers that are well thought out. And you have to appreciate his thought processes, even if you don't agree with him. I watched Haley Stevens um, skirt answers to questions repeatedly. I became more and more convinced the more I heard him. Um, just a week before the election, I was in a room with about 15 clergy leaders. Um, and I purposefully, because by that time I had made up my mind that I was supporting him, but I purposefully said little in the room because I wanted to see what would happen in that room. And I watched El Sayed turn that room. I believe that if he has the opportunity to present his case um, before our community, I think he can do well. He the the line that he gave Wednesday morning about his Egyptian roots and him understanding uh, 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 that Egyptian roots means that he's a child of Africa just as we are, and him understanding that. I think that's important, significant, and I think he means it from his heart. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see how that all plays out. Donovan McKinney should have a much easier road. However, normally the 13th, you'd say whoever the Democratic candidate is, uh, they're going to win. Um, the uh, the person who ran against him, who's Nikoriak, TP Nikoriak, he got 18,000 votes. Um, and between Donovan and Shree, they got over 110,000. So he should have a clear path, but um, they're going to throw a lot of money and a lot of accusations his way as well. Um, there was some other uh, campaigns down the ballot. For example, in the third district, third state senator district, You had I counted them earlier. What did I say? 11, 5,
11.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people running in the third district for state senator. Among them, names like Gary Hunter, Adam Ollier, Corey Hall, and the individual who won that contest, John Conyers. Um, uh, this was another really strongly contested race. Corey Hall had a lot of institutional support. He also garnered the support of the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity, of which I'm a part, whose endorsements this year were very interesting. But Adam Ollier has served our state well in a number of roles, and has uh, unfortunately he tried to unseat Sri Tanadar and twice, and was unable once because he was kicked off the ballot. The other time, it just didn't pan out. I mean, this was a strong field, and John Conyers won. Um, I know you haven't been in Michigan long, and you don't really know the storied career, but I'm sure you're aware of the name and the legacy
Yes, the
of
dean.
of the dean of the Congressional Black Caucus, John
Mhm.
Conyers.
HR
Um,
40, reparations.
there we go. There we go. And um, how do we address? And I think John Conyers will serve the third district well, uh, but in a race such as that, with at least two other very strong candidates in Corey Hall and Adam Ollier, um, do you think? What does it take to overcome name recognition? uh, our state, uh, we do it over and over again. Uh, my dear friend, Fred Durhall, uh, certainly his father's name is significant in Black politics. Um, our current mayor in the city of Detroit, Mary Sheffield, going all the way back to her grandfather, who was legendary. The Sheffield name. There are the stalwarts, and I could just go on and on with those names. Uh, what is it about our community that makes us so sensitive to name recognition? And what does a candidate uh, have to do to get beyond that?
That's a really tough question. That is a question for political girls all across the nation. We are all trying to figure that out. I think it's two things. One of them is good, and one of them is bad. I think in the African American community, we respect legacy. We respect who you come from, who your people are, what your mom and them. We respect all that. We want to know who you are and the kind of stock that you come from. And a name like John Conyers, I mean, that's just going to speak volumes. I mean, he introduced HR 40. They were still trying to get HR 40 passed when I was working in Congress, right? And so the legacy just goes back. And so when you have that, it's just something that is just uniquely yours, and it's something that you can use. Same with Mayor Sheffield. I mean, that it means something to us. I think the other reason why name ID is so big is because a lot of our voters are not necessarily as, we just don't have that much voter education out there. And so when you see a name, you're like, okay, that's who you're around with because that's who I know, right? People are looking for alignment. They're looking for people that they can identify with. They're looking for folks from their community. And if they see a name that they know, that's who they're going to go with because they're going to be like, okay, well, he's with us or she's with us. So we want to make sure that we choose the people who are aligned. And a lot of times, the names that we know, the people that we're familiar with, people who aren't strangers to us, that's who we're going to go with.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So good and bad there, and that is the nature of the beast. Uh, all up and down this ballot, I see progressive um, individuals who were able to overcome, most of them, tremendous odds. Um, i- Again, going back to what we believe we see, uh, can this, uh, let me ask it a different way. What is it that progressive candidates can say to make more traditional Democratic voters um, feel more comfortable with their candidacies? Or are we at a point where the labels, which I feel are unfair, the labels of socialism, the labels of communism, are so intense um, that uh, these progressive candidates who were able to win the primary uh, may not have a snowball's chance of winning in the general election?
I just feel like propagating these labels, I just feel like it's another tactic of fear mongering. It's another way to divide people. It's another way to use big, scary sounding words to make people fear what they don't understand. Because really, when you pull back the layers and you listen to a person like Donovan McKinney and you listen to a person like Abdul Al Sayed, they're talking about progressive policies that poor people, marginalized people, people of color that we all agree on, that we all think are important, like having healthcare and education and things of that nature. So I think that um, I feel like once you pull back those layers, once you are able to educate folks on saying like this is just something that they're saying to try to divide us. What we really should be concerned about is policy and the policymakers that we're sending down to Washington. We want people who are going to be fighting for things that are going to make our lives better. We want people who are going to be fighting so that Donald Trump doesn't, go into these unsanctioned wars and drive our gas prices up. You want people who are going to hold the line on issues that mean something to the people of the community. Malcolm X said, "You'll cast your ballot for a man who has the good of the community at heart." Like these are the things that the progressive candidates are showing. For example, Donovan McKinney. I went to a house party that was hosted by a person in the Democratic Party, and it was older people, and they were asking him questions. They were like, "At this point, we need somebody who's going to go up there and represent us." Like
Hmm.
Sharice
Hmm.
Hanadar was not representing us. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to fight for us? That is where we're drawing the line. And he was able to satisfy them. And so that's what people are looking for. So I think once you get out of these labels and start looking at policies that are going to actually change people's lives and help us realize our life chances and bring down the cost of living, I think people will gravitate towards that because they won't be looking so much at those labels and those words and what Trump is trying to do to divide us. And we'll remember that our fates are linked together and that we have to be in unity if we want to move forward.
And so, um, if I were advising those candidates, what I would say to them is that between now and November, they've got to walk the leather off their shoes, and
That's it.
their knuckles have to be red, because they've got to go. The rallies are wonderful, but those house parties, those small groups of people. I said to one of the candidates, I said, it's wonderful because everybody wants to come to the church and talk to the congregation. I said, what you should be asking the pastors if you can bring refreshments to the church and have a half an hour to talk to the congregation after the
After.
service so that you can entertain their questions. People need to hear these candidates and understand what they're fighting for.
Yeah.
The chair of the Black Caucus in the Michigan Democratic Party is a gentleman who, like Congressman Conyers, has championed reparations for years and years and years. And whenever he's making his comments online, reparations comes into the conversation, and he consistently has been saying that these progressive don't represent Black issues, and then he'll go to reparations. Uh, Well, yeah, reparations is a black issue, uh, but health insurance, um, that's a black issue. The price of gas and food right now, that's a black issue. The fact that Michigan has one of the lowest education ratings in the nation, yeah, that too uh, is a black issue. So they got a lot of work to do, but I believe it's all doable stuff. I've lost so much information. I literally had taken a picture of some statistics that had to do with um, uh, the terrible financial state of America right now under this Trump administration. Um, the bottom line is that though I can't find the numbers right now, uh, everybody who goes to a grocery store, everybody who has to put gas in their car, everybody who has to pay for automobile insurance knows that we certainly are no better financially than we were. We need somebody who's going to fight for those kinds of bread and butter issues
The
and
gas.
all of those things.
I was just gonna say gas at the gas station at the corner where I live is $4.59 a gallon. um, and it don't seem like it's coming down. So I'll say this for your last point about what I would say to these candidates. If I would say the same thing that you would say. You need to get in front of folks. You need to go to their homes. You need to spread your message, especially Abdul, knowing that he has so much work to do in
Mhm.
Detroit. People need to hear from you, because otherwise they don't know you, and people don't vote for strangers. So I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah. There were some other things that happened that were just interesting to me. I know not a lot of people were watching things in Highland Park, Michigan, but I was. And that's a race where I was just wrong. I There was a woman there in Highland Park um, who I call the Mother Teresa of Highland Park. The neighborhood affectionately calls her Mama Shu. Um, Mama Shu lost one of her sons to violence a few years back, and her response was to create environments for the young people there in Highland Park to be able to do other things. And it's just grown into so many things. This is a woman who has served the city of Highland Park well for 10, maybe 12 years now. And she was running for mayor. I thought that Mama Shu would be a shoe in, but the people of Highland Park voted to continue with their current mayor. And I think it goes back to something that you said earlier. There was just something about older black voters, and it feels funny now when I say that because I guess I'm one. But there's something about older black voters that just causes us, as I said earlier, to ride the horse uh, that we've already rode. Um, I saw things like that happen in a couple of lesser races where you just thought that there would be a change and it did not happen. So, those are just some interesting things as we look at the landscape, at the political landscape in our state, which is why Michigan is a purple state. You never know which way people are going to go here in Michigan. Of course, we give shout outs to Jocelyn Benson and to Garland Gilchrist and to all of those right down the line who were able to win. I, for one, am going to do everything within my power to push every Democrat that won in the general because what we need uh, is we really need a Democratic sweep, both in our state and in our country.
And we need to keep the Senate.
and
and
we
for a
need to
majority in
keep
the
this,
Senate.
and it's very important. And I hope that family squabbles and in-party bickering does not make Abdul Sayed a weaker candidate than he would be on his own. There were some other things that I found interesting, like, for example, in Detroit, uh, the DPSCD millage proposal. It did not just win, but it won overwhelmingly. And that was very encouraging to me because that was an indication that people actually listened. There was, as always, the attempt to make people think that it was going to make their taxes go up and all of that. But I think DPSCD did a very good job of putting their message out, as did others. Uh, and the people of Detroit voted for their children. The other thing that I was leery of, I didn't know if we'd pull it off, and that was the transportation millage for Southeast Michigan, which someone like yourself who has lived in different parts of the country and seen how important mass transit systems can be, you understand what a lot of Detroiters and people in this area don't. That transit system will open up so many doors and so many opportunities for so many people. And even in some of the communities that historically had voted to keep those smart buses out of their city, you saw that proposal, if it didn't win, it got closer to winning than ever before. So we are going to have a smart regional system in Southeast Michigan that connects um, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. Now, while those villages were passing, I saw residents in outlying communities vote down millages for education, vote down millages for, like in Orion Township, they voted down a millage that had to do with police and fire. And today they called an emergency meeting because they're saying that without that millage, they don't even know how much longer they'll be able to provide those necessary services.
Mm,
And as I listened to residents being interviewed on the news, uh, they they sound a lot like us here in, in Detroit. They're saying that they're being taxed beyond measure, that they're not seeing um, any real impact for their tax dollar, and that they were just at a point where they were determined to hold the line. Um, Most of those counties, most of those districts, most of those cities are currently represented by Republicans. I think you feel it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that's very strange because you don't usually see millages for police and fire, especially in Republican areas, get voted down. I mean, that's usually, one of the things that people gonna pay for regardless. And so that's very interesting. I would have never thought. I would have never thought that something like that would have happened.
As I watched that earlier today, and maybe I'm just being hopeful and optimistic, but I think that what we're seeing uh, is frustration on the
Yeah.
part of the Republican base and a feeling that their leaders have not been looking out for their interest as well. And that's something that I believe Democrats would do well to take note of and perhaps capitalize on as we go into this general election cycle. We're coming up on 7 o'clock and the close of this conversation. Um, what does all of this say for where we're headed in November? Because this progressive push is not just happening in Michigan. We see it. We saw it in D.C. with the young lady that, um, against all odds, looks like she will be the next mayor of DC. Or I know their timing is different. I believe that was still a primary.
It
Uh,
was.
yeah, but there is a very, very high chance that Progressive is going to win there. You've been keeping up with it all across the state, certainly in Georgia and some of the southern states. What's going on? What does it say about the future? And can this progressive push give us the impetus we need uh, to fight back against Trumpism, MAGAism, and a Republican Party that has lost its way?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is to be to be overly dramatic. I think this is a fight for the soul of America, right? We do have an ideology and a despot and a fascist who we are fighting against currently right now. And I think the American people are looking around and saying, "Hey, what has this government done for me lately? What have these policies netted in my community? Like, what change have I seen? What are my tax dollars going to pay for? I'm paying all this money, but I'm not really getting what I'm supposed to get from my government. And here comes this new set of people who are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and strong on these issues and are not going to push back. I think for the longest, voters have just been looking for people who are going to stand 10 toes down on the issues that matter to working people. If you're not talking about what's going to happen for working people, if you're not down for the 99%, then it's very clear that you don't have what we need. And so we're actively, the voters, the electorate, we are actively looking for people who are going to support us, who are going to support policies that impact our cost of living and impact our quality of life. And if you don't, and we're judging you based off of that, and you having to earn our vote. And so I think that it's just setting up for a shootout. It's going to be a real battle between which ideology we want to choose going into November. Are we going to stick with MAGA? I mean, this is the same thing for Georgia. Are we going to stick with these politicians who are painting all this hateful rhetoric, or are we going to look to the future and look to more progressive policies and look for a new way to move forward? And I think that time will tell. I think November will tell us where this country plans to go, and I think it'll set us up really well for 2028 when we have to get President Trump out of the White House.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you to Mesa Bailey, the ultimate political girl, for joining us today. This has been um, an invigorating conversation as always. And people like you, people like me, we're down for the fight. So from now to November, I'm going to be looking to do anything and everything I can to help Democrats up and down the ballot. To be able to stand and fight the good fight of faith. And because we are people of faith, we believe that God's going to turn it around for our good. Listen, thank you for watching this episode of the Bishop's Table, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it later. We will be back in the studio next week with another episode. And until then, as always, we encourage you to stay safe and stay safe.